Welcome back to season 2 of Care to CEO. And this season is about earned leadership, integration, and transformation. And with Crystal, we know so far that nothing in her journey has been handed to her. Every seat, every system, every lesson was built from the ground up. And as a former CNA turned into CEO and city councilwoman, Crystal has really learned what it takes to lead a business, a family, and a community, and how to stay humble while doing it. So this season, we're going deeper, really showing you how you can build your own care-based business, scale it, and lead boldly without losing yourself. So I always am excited to talk to you, Crystal. I'm super excited about this conversation because we're taking it back to a little bit of basics for some of the newer listeners and
Yes,
really diving into who you are.
absolutely.
So I'm
Yeah. I mean, we had a great, strong first season, and we're kicking off season two. And yeah, we just want to do a recap, to let people know about my humble beginnings. And uh, I definitely wanted to do that because I know there are so many people out there that can relate, who are caregivers now and aspiring home care agencies, or even people in the healthcare world who may be nurses, or other healthcare professionals looking to pivot into, ownership. So, these are some very important conversations that I am just enjoy speaking about.
Absolutely. And I always love to hear your process and really how you got here. So, when it goes back to your journey as a caregiver to becoming a CEO, when we think back on season 1, what moments, really shaped your belief that you could build a care-based business despite starting from the bottom without having the knowledge, without having the resources? Were there any moments that really shaped your belief that you about building a
Absolutely. So I think season one was just a complete reminder that I did not come from a fancy start. You know, it wasn't. I came from humble beginnings, as I mentioned. Um, it was really repetition, starting from childhood, uh, caring for my great grandmother who lived with us. My whole childhood life and part of my adult life, and care was just very hands on in our household, and it was always about making sure she ate well and she was safe and she was clean and she was heard. So many times I just sat in her room with her and listened to her stories, and I think that really gave her a sense of worth as well. And I think for me, that is where leadership started, even though at that time I had no idea that's what was happening. Um, I was it was responsibility that was a part of my everyday life before I recognized that. But later on in my 20s, I became a CNA, and that really taught me how to manage individuals and not just do tasks. I learned from observing, documenting, to make sure that the people I care for had dignity and boundaries. And those are skills that literally allowed me to build a business, later on in life. But it also gave me a sense of creativity because people don't think that when you're caring for others that you can still use your creativity, but you really can. And being that I'm a artistic person from childhood. I loved art, I love fashion, things of that nature. Uh, Being in the care world, you can still just incorporate your own self and bring your own, personal spin on things into the care world by designing care plans that are tailored to individuals because we're all different, right? So that's something I really enjoyed, you know, uh, working with people and learning, what their interests are, learning what their skills are and what their life used to be like, and really tailoring care to them.
Absolutely. I do. That actually just reminded me of one of the episodes in season 1 that you mentioned starting your own business with, I think it was like fashion jewelry that you were doing. You had like kids
Yes, yes,
jewelry
I
at
did.
one point.
You mean with the how I used to make jewelry and like sell it at First Friday in the
Yeah,
marketplace? Yes, yes. I really miss, not gonna lie, like I really miss doing that. I was just thinking about that recently. Like I may need to whip out some of my old materials and supplies and get back to it because it is something that really, uh, you know how cooking, some people just gives them that sense of, being able to meditate and just calms them. Like that's what jewelry making does for me. So I may have to get back to it.
we were talking about your creativity, and I that just gave me that reminder of an earlier episode that you talked about that.
Yes,
And I think that that just was kind of a testament to your entrepreneurship even earlier on without even realizing that you actually had a
absolutely.
business within a business, just
I
about
had a
who you
business within a
are.
business. Yes.
And I
I've
think
done that many times in life.
and I think that that also kind of shows about how your success wasn't inherited. So, what are some of the hardest lessons and maybe even sacrifices that you've had to make along the way to be where you are now?
So, as you mentioned, I definitely didn't inherit a business. I inherited responsibility, and that's certainly not a dig at anyone who did inherit a business. Because if you did, hey, wonderful, that's great. Um, but I had to learn how to turn responsibility into strategy. And one of the hardest lessons was accepting that hard work alone it doesn't protect you. You need structure, right? And so you need pricing that makes sense, policies, a great team, and boundaries that protect your family. So uh, I I sacrifice things like sleep, comfort, being understood, being liked, and I just had to learn to delay that gratification and invest in things that are quite boring to someone maybe new to business, such as insurance, compliance, payroll systems, trainings. These are things that aren't. This isn't the fun part of business, but this is a way that you win in the long run. I needed to stop confusing being busy with being effective because those are two different things. And I had to learn how to stop saying yes out of fear because saying yes to everything is a form of fear of missing out, fear of disappointing people, and just accept that growth requires very uncomfortable conversations. It requires performance and standards, money. People don't, it requires money and it requires accountability.
Absolutely. You know, I think that even learning about your story and previous episodes up until now, I know that you've had to really earn authority also along the way repeatedly in different aspects of your
My
life,
goodness.
from being a caregiver to being a CEO and then a councilwoman. So, what does really earning the room mean to you? And how do you really maintain humility while leading? Because I know that that was at one point a little bit of a struggle for you as well.
For sure, for sure. Especially coming from, where I came from, I was just this, I think, young person that was very modest. Hard work was just it's just rooted in me from my parents. But earning the room really means that, I don't walk in asking for permission to lead anymore. I know my worth. I know my value. Um, I don't walk in performing for approval of anyone. I can bring receipts. I have results. I can bring preparation and clarity. And as a caregiver, credibility was competence and compassion. And as a CEO, credibility is also systems and outcomes. So as a councilwoman, it was showing up for people consistently and being able to explain the why behind the decisions. And humility doesn't mean that you have to shrink. For me, humility is remembering my mission, my purpose. I try to always prepare like there's someone counting on me because that is that is the truth. And separate my identity from my title because I'm definitely still a student. this is a learning process for me every day too. And I do lead with standards and not my ego. And, the goal is quality outcomes and not just, being right about something.
Absolutely. And being that you have to operate in multiple spheres every single day and, you wear so many hats. So, which leadership skills transfer seamlessly, do you think? And where do you really lead differently in business versus in family life?
So I think some leadership skills transfer pretty perfectly. Uh, Communication, consistency, and emotional regulation in business. I have to be clear about, expectations and consequences at home. I still need expectations. Um, but the delivery has to be softer because family is not, staffing. And sometimes I have been guilty of almost operating the family like a business, and I've had my kids check me on that a little bit, like, okay, mom, like we're not staff. This is not a staff meeting. But don't get me wrong, I think that running a home is very similar to running a business. It's management, and consistency, but people can't follow what they don't understand. So, I had to learn that in both spaces, home and the business. So, um,
Absolutely. I
let's
mean, it
see.
is sad.
I think some action steps that I encourage my mentees to take are create a family system, so that, you have a morning routine, a homework block, weekly check-ins, and, try to run it for about 14 days so that it becomes a habit. And in business, write one expectation you keep repeating verbally. That is very, that is something that's very essential. And turn it into a written standard operating procedure so that you can stop carrying it in your head. So that's something I really had to learn. Like, put things on paper, get it out of your head because it will just stay there.
Absolutely. Like just put it on paper, like that brain dump, just write everything out. I think that that's something that's super helpful in all aspects of life,
Definitely.
especially for you. You're managing so many different things. It's easy to just kind of like have everything jumbled up in one space. So being able to just put everything on paper would definitely help. And I think it's true what you said, even about routines and family life even being kind of run like a business in a way, because it is still management. You're still managing your family and the routines and lifestyle on top of being the boss and the CEO and all these other hats that you have to wear. And, from being part of city council to being CEO, how have public and private leadership experiences really shaped your decision making and influence and responsibility?
As a public leader, that taught me that, how visible decisions are and how quickly people will assign motives when they don't really understand the process. We we were attacked a lot on different things, and a lot of it really just came from other people's lack of understanding of procedures. But being on city council forced me to think in systems also, which is something I that's not new to me. Because we dealt with budgets, policies, and long-term impact, families, citizens, but as a CEO, I think it's very similar. I bring that same mindset. Decisions can't just feel good today, right? It's not about making decisions out of people pleasing or because it feels good to you. Um, they have to hold up throughout the quarter or the next year. And public leadership really sharpened my ability to communicate decisions without over explaining myself and to carry responsibility without needing applause. So I think, honestly, I think that is one of the most important aspects that public leadership taught me in this business ownership role is don't wait for an applause.
Mhm.
Just do what needs to be done because it's the right thing to do, and don't expect any validation from anyone.
That's a good point too, because I feel like oftentimes when people have that expectation, it there was a saying, it was expectations can like ruin the whole experience in a way. Like it will lead to disappointment. That's what we can edit that part.
Absolutely,
That's what I was trying to say. I was like,
for
expectations can
sure.
lead to disappointments because
Yeah,
you can't have that expectation. You don't know how things are gonna go, and you can't do it for that. You just have to do what needs to get
you
done.
just have to do what you feel is the right thing to do, or what makes sense to do especially after thinking something through, and thinking about the possible outcomes. You make the decision based on, what's right and what's best. So that's what I try my best to do as a councilwoman, and that is what I do every day as a business owner and as a parent, right?
Absolutely. And along with leadership, you know, comes so much responsibility, and leadership in a way can harden you. So, what
Yes.
practices do you do, or what practices really help you stay grounded and remain humble and also emotionally present while you're carrying so much significant responsibility?
Yes. I mean, I can't stress enough that leadership can definitely harden you. I found myself really losing myself many times in this CEO journey, especially because of the different attacks that I've had, uh, staff members that have just done things that really put your business at risk, and trying not to take that personally. People trying to sabotage you, and again, just really people that you're like, but why? Like, but why? Or staff members that you really helped. People in general, it doesn't have to even be a staff member. People that you tried to help, you tried to see the good in them, and they still went and did, wrong behind your back. And while, yeah, there are times I did let that overtake me earlier on, um, I had to, I had to definitely learn how to stay grounded, by staying close to my why. I have to remember, the faces that are attached to me, that rely on me. Uh, some of those obviously being my family, my children, my husband. Uh, Others being those workers that, my goodness, they do so much wonderful work for me, and the individuals that we serve, and and I have to, and their families, and I just show up, with dignity despite whatever who else is doing, because in all honesty, that's their problem. That's a them problem. That's not a me problem. I can only control what I do. So that is what I do. So I learned that softness is not a weakness, because yes, there was a time where I felt like a roaring lion, and I had to definitely remind myself that softness is not a weakness. It's emotional presence without the emotional chaos. And I can be compassionate, and I can still hold standards. And, my goal is to be a safe leader and not a reactive leader. So, that's really helped me in this new journey. I protect my mornings. This starts at the beginning of my day. Um, for at least 15 minutes, just, really waking up with gratitude, and, being grateful that I woke up. And I keep a personal standard to respond and not react. And I stay in the community with people I stay in a community with people who tell me the truth, who are not seeking to, manipulate, or, uh, go behind your back, and they only clap for you. They're excited for you, and I'm excited for them. So, that's what life is about for me, from here on out. So I encourage people to start a reset routine when you feel that way, when you get in those moments where, you're being overtaken by, um, anger and anxiety from business life. Uh, do 3 minutes, breathe, say a short prayer or affirmation, find something that you can repeat in your head because this is literally works for me. I told you I follow many different people, who are successful, who, give you pointers on this very thing, just how to kind of reset your mind when you find your mind going into those uh, toxic places. Oprah Winfrey being one of them. She says to just repeat, everything is always working out for me. And that's way earlier on that, she said that, but and that was one of my more early affirmations, and it works. I mean, it works. There were some times where I was like, oh my God, things literally can't get any worse than what they are. And I had to remind myself,
Yeah.
don't
You
think
never
like
say
that.
that one.
And everything is always working out for me.
Mhm. That's a good
All
one.
doors are open for me.
I've learned to never say things can't get worse because the second you say that, they will find a way
They
to
get worse. Like don't
every time.
attract that. Don't attract that statement that nothing can get worse, because as soon as you do, I promise you it will. And,
So
and another thing is I encourage people to just, you know, audit one area where you've gotten hard. Just be intentional about that, because that's what I have to do. Like, I just, I feel like, there's an area that just feels a little hard in me right now. And choose one boundary or system that reduces that stress that causes it. Just think about the source of it and what's causing it. And and work to soften that, from whatever you need to do,
that reset.
however you need to do it.
Yeah, I like that. That reset, that self audit. I think that is so
Yes,
important.
for
And
sure.
it's easy to lose sight of that, especially
It
you when
is,
wearing, all these different hats and doing all these things. It's so easy to get caught up in doing what you need to do and just keep moving forward and not take that moment to really think and internalize what's changing, what's going on, and like having that self discovery a little bit. And like you
for
said, like
sure.
that reset is so important. And
Hmm.
going along with resets, you've talked about systems and how important they are and how that is really almost like the foundation for so many things is the systems that you've put in place in different areas. So being that systems create freedom in a sense in business and also creating safety at home, how have you designed certain structures that really let you scale your business and even maybe family life without really burning out?
So I build repeatable workflows, uh, outcomes, not just tasks. This is something, but I will say, because in the years I've been doing this, I've had to wash, rinse, and repeat this cycle so many times. I'll tell you right now, if we find something better, that's a better system than what we're operating right now, I'm gonna likely go with that system, because as I mentioned, I started this business from scratch. It wasn't a franchise to where when I purchased a business, I purchased their standard operating procedures. This has been, we've had to create, recreate, improvise, revise, you know, over and over again. So, but I say learn from others, learn from other people's systems, really go out and do your due diligence to do that research. But like as I mentioned, that I've built systems that are repeatable. Um, that way you can own the result. When you do that, things such as onboarding, scheduling, documentation, incident reporting, and quality checks, things of that nature. We had to just build those systems out, and even though so I will say we have the foundation for sure. We have the foundation of it, but sometimes when something is it's like a better way, you just now all you got to do is maybe include it in there. include something or add to it. But the foundation is built. The systems are built now. I have a franchisable business that I could sell, with our SOPs right now. I'm confident of that. At home, I feel like systems protect peace. I think they do that in business as well. And when you have a household uh, and a business, you can't just rely on memory. You can't rely on your memory. You need rhythms, calendars, routines, delegation, um, and systems don't remove love. So that's important to understand. That does not mean you don't love your family, because I've met some moms, and I'm trying to get on their level. The moms that got like the calendar, they got it all going on. Like I'm still trying to level up to some of those moms. So that certainly does not. I think personally, I think that equals love in some ways. Um, so that just removes confusion. So yeah, but as I mentioned, just build a system that you can repeat, over and over again, and that you can just you do it so much that it just becomes like secondhand nature.
Exactly. And even like beyond routines, also power, right? Power shows up differently in work and in marriage and in motherhood, raising a family, being a CEO. So, how do you really handle all of these dynamics? And what lessons do you think have been maybe the most critical for leading, but leading without dominating?
So power shows up differently depending on the relationship. Like for instance, in work, power is role based. And it should be structured through policies and accountability, right? In marriage, I think power should be shared and not negotiated, But in motherhood, power is like stewardship, it's like guidance through love, you know, uh, modeling the behavior you want to, see in your children. And I think I do more of that than anything. But I think across the board, I just do more modeling behavior than anything. You know, I just act in the way that I think others should act around me. That's how I teach, through doing.
By example.
I think the critical lesson is leading without dominating. I don't have a desire to dominate people. Um, thank goodness. That's like too much work. I don't even want to. Um, but you can be decisive without being disrespectful. Um, because yeah, I can definitely be opinionated, but we can all accomplish that without being disrespectful to other people. And also, real leadership creates ownership in others, and that I think that is something that is the most gratifying to me, is when I can help others really own who they are through my leadership.
And along with power and talking about power, authority is something that also is huge and comes into play in all these different dynamics, right? So, being that authority is often questioned, it's often questioned before it's even recognized in certain cases. So, how do you really remain confident but authentic, but also humble in spaces where you're under scrutinized?
And I have to be real. Authority is, like you said, is definitely often questioned before it's ever recognized. And this is something that I deal with on a regular basis as a Black woman, despite the fact that many people out there don't believe that people of color face these uh, situations on a regular basis. We do. Um, but the bottom line is, I stay confident in anchoring in preparation and results. So, I don't have to outsource my worth to people's reactions. I know who I am, a builder, a caregiver, a leader, and a student of my work. And like I said, I remain a student always, because, we're always learning. But I think I stay authentic by telling the truth without having to be very tough or aggressive. I really don't have need to be to do that. And I think I can be warm and firm, and I can still stay humble, remembering that I'm representing something bigger than me, my family, my team, and individuals that we serve. So,
Abs-
I think I lead with receipts, standards, outcomes, documentation. That's why I'm still standing.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't think I'd be licensed otherwise,
Mhm.
right? Um, and I encourage the listeners to, write an authority statement, even if it's just 2 sentences. This is another thing that's part of my morning routine because I have mine in the bathroom on my mirror. So now wake up and say them out loud, before and read it before the chaos of the day starts, you know. And choose your rooms wisely. Not every seat is worth fighting for,
Mhm.
so just remember that and create an exit plan or a boundary plan within 30 days.
I like that idea too, just having that even in the bathroom on the mirror, like before the chaos of the day, just having that morning
Yes, it
reminder.
really helps. I mean, I can't believe how well just doing something that simple just kind of helps you really just hone in and focus and say, okay, I got this. There's
And
nothing I can't handle.
exactly. And that also reminds me, I think definitely in season one, a topic we discussed a lot was confidence too, and how you have to work up to it. You have to build that confidence. So I
Right.
think that probably goes hand in hand with that as well, because that just helps to build the confidence you have, and how that goes into all the other decisions that you have to make. And being that confidence is such a big part of being a leader, and having that trust in yourself as well. And
Absolutely.
leadership is so rewarding, I'm sure, right? And since leadership is rewarding, but it's also costly. So, what were some moments that really tested your endurance before your efforts were actually seen or paid off?
Uh, Definitely the cost showed up before any payoff. I don't think earlier on, I don't think that I thought there was a payoff. There were seasons that were just so heavy, and the pressure was just so loud, especially when I was a councilwoman and, a CEO. The expectations of me were like so, so heavy. Um, but I did have to just keep building, even when it felt it felt impossible at times. I'm not gonna lie. Just the pressure and the anxiety that it caused sometimes. And most of that process, there was no clapping for me. There was nothing but criticism, actually. It was just pressure and criticism. So there was no clapping. There's times when there were payroll issues, staffing gaps, all while there's the huge amount of pressure that I'm undergoing and scrutiny. But I just had to keep going, and my endurance was absolutely tested. I remember being in those moments like, how does one survive this? How? Like I'm asking myself, like I don't know, stepping outside of myself, like girl, I don't know what you're gonna do. This is
It's
okay,
a lot.
but but these are the moments that really created me. I'm looking back, I am so grateful that I built the endurance, to withstand, I think, anything. Um, and you have to be able to endure these moments when there is no celebration for you. You know, you just keep going. And that's why I respect the process so much, and it's also why I am here to stand in the gaps to help those who probably are on the brink of quitting. right now. Then they just, need someone to tell them to keep going and just need a little leg up. Um, but the process is what carried me, not my feelings. It also, like I always say, comes down to stepping outside of yourself, taking, those emotions out of the equation. So I encourage people to really work to do that. Um, do the right thing, even when it's expensive, from training, compliance, standards, you know, saying no to distractions, like things that look like opportunities, but really are just distractions. And then they take you off your mission. Been there, done that. I think so many times during while I was a councilwoman, I didn't want to say no when people invited me to different things like fundraisers. It just seemed wrong. Like, oh my gosh, I can't say no to that. I'm a councilwoman. I can't say no when someone needs to meet me to speak to me. I'm a councilwoman, but I definitely learned to manage. I definitely learned to manage the stress and create boundaries while doing so. So I encourage our listeners to name the in between season that you're in right now, because we really have to start identifying these barriers, because they're very crucial to your success. And decide one process that you will honor daily for at least 30 days, right? Because it takes 30 days to form a habit. And also create a small support system, a mentor, a peer, an accountability partner, a leadership isolation, or like a silent business killer. Leadership isolation is a silent business killer.
I know that that's a big part of, how you got here as well, was finding the right mentors and building that community and really having that be such a present part of your journey. And
Yeah.
I think that it's super common, especially with women, where so many women tend to confuse humility with stepping back. So, how do you lead with both strength and humility? And why is that balance so essential?
Yeah, I do agree that a lot of women confuse humility with stepping back, and that's really not humility. In a sense, it could be self abandonment, um, because humility is, to me, is staying teachable. And I give credit, but I don't act like I'm not qualified for what I've earned. You have to really own that. Like, to me, you measure success by how far you've come from where you started. And I am miles away, from where I started. Strength and humility together is what makes leadership safe. People can trust you because you're confident without being arrogant. And this balance matters because care-based work requires both heart and a backbone. You still need a backbone, and standing up for yourself and having a voice. Uh, Again, it doesn't mean that you're loud and aggressive, um, but you do need a backbone to run a successful business. So I make sure I stay teachable. I can be corrected and still be a leader. I mean, I'm corrected all the time. I love being corrected, actually. It's, and I try to find people who are smarter than me all the time. Like, that's what I want. I want to be around people smarter so that I can learn from them, and they are, where I'm looking to go. I stay direct, um, with people, but I can still be kind and professional, and I can still honor my growth. And I don't apologize. I don't apologize for being prepared.
Absolutely.
Unapologetic.
Hmm. Absolutely. And like we said, I think that the balance it's so essential. It's so many things, but you need the balance to be able to show up in the way you need to show up for everyone and
For
for
sure.
yourself. And by the end of season two, I can't believe we're already in season two,
I
but
know, isn't that
by
crazy?
the by the end of season two, what do you want listeners to feel empowered to do differently, whether it's in business, leadership, and or life, right? And how can they really start their own business journey or care-based business journey?
By the end of season 2, I want listeners to feel empowered and stop waiting for permission and start building with structure. I want them to understand that care-based business can both be profitable and principled when you run it with standards. Um, and if they start their journey, it begins with mindset mechanics. Know your why, learn the regulations, build your systems, and serve people with dignity. You don't have to be perfect. I'm not perfect. No one is. I have mentors that are doing far greater than me. I know plenty of people that's doing so much. You know what I mean? From a financial standpoint, they've been in business longer, but they're not perfect. They're not perfect. So that's my point. So you have to just be committed to being consistent. That's the bottom line. Care. This is still a business, even though it's a care business. It's a business, and it deserves business level excellence like anything else. It deserves you to give your best. And your story is not your limitation, it's your credibility. That's really what I've learned. All the things that, the different traumatic experiences that I may have experienced throughout my life, or the pitfalls, the challenges, they were never my limitation, even if in those moments I felt that way. They are now my credibility. This is this is my PhD in my life experience. I have a PhD in my life experience that no one can take from me. So, and everyone has that in them as well.
Absolutely. I like that limitation is your credibility. That's such a, you always have the best sayings. But it is, and it's like that is your PhD. It's your life. It's your.
It's mine. It's yours, right? No one can take that from us. We lived it, so I can talk about it. For those people, I hear some of the commentators say things like, "Oh, what do you know about this basketball player? Go play basketball." Things of that nature, and it's like, no, yeah, I know what I know, right? And no one can take that from me. I got a PhD in what I know.
Exactly, and it's yours. No one is
Right.
gonna have the same experience, and no one's gonna have the same perspective on things and the same outlook on things. So no one can take it from you, and it's not anyone else's. It's completely unique. So
Right.
absolutely, and I think that this season is so important because we're getting deeper and deeper into conversations that are so important, and this season is not about glamour. It's about the grit, the process, and grounded leadership, and for all the rest that's gonna come. So it's also about building what you weren't given and scaling with strategy and soul. So I love that. And also integrating leadership across every table you sit at without losing humility, heart, and really the focus of your mission. So I know that you have so much more to talk about.
Yes,
You're
it's going to
always up
be
to something new.
an awesome season. Please like, share. You can view our episodes at www.caretoceo.com. You can book me at my website at csmithco.us. And remember, build with standards, not stress. Build with systems. Don't guess.
I love that. And we'll make sure to have that information in the below the podcast as well, with all the website information as well. And thank you so much, Crystal. It was great speaking to you as always. I can't wait for the next episode.
I can't either.
We will talk soon.